Hello class, today's lesson is going to be 8-6 in your books, and it's learning how to factor a polynomial that looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. This looks extremely similar to what you did yesterday, except that now the first term in the polynomial also has a coefficient. Alright, so the first example we're going to try is 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. The thing that you need to worry about is, just like last time, what the c is. We need to find the factors of that, but we also need to find the factors of the first coefficient, that leading coefficient, which is 2. So I'm going to put that in my chart now. So I'm going to try to find the factors of 2. I'm going to try to find the factors of 3. And with those combinations, I'm going to be able to come up with a couple different possible factorizations. And then I'm going to try to figure out if the middle term that I get from those will give me the negative 7x. So the possible factors of 2 are 1 and 2, right? And I'm just going to put that twice and you'll see why. For the factors of 3, because I have a negative for my b and a positive for my c, I'm going to go back to that chart that I had yesterday, where I'm looking for a negative and a positive, and I find that here in the bottom row, a negative and a positive, which is going to tell me that both the p and the q will be negative numbers. So I'm only looking for negative numbers that when you multiply them, you're going to get 3. So we can have negative 1 and negative 3. But now I'm going to worry about the order that I write them in. So I'm going to have the same numbers, but I'm going to write them in the reverse order, negative 3 and negative 1. Because now I'm going to go with what I have to help me with my factorization. So now this is going to tell me the coefficient of the x, and this is going to tell me the p, and then this is going to tell me the coefficient of the next x, and then the q. So for the first parentheses, I'm going to have x minus 1, and then for the second set, I'm going to have a 2x minus 3. Do you see how I did that? So now let's try to set up the next one. Again, I'm going to have an x, but this time I'm going to have minus 3. And for the second one is going to be a 2x minus 1. All right, so take your time when you're doing this, all right, with your matching. So now I have two possible ways. These are really the only two ways if I'm going to get a 2 as the leading coefficient and a 3 as the constant. But I need to figure out which of these is going to help me to get the negative 7x in the middle. So when I'm multiplying these middle numbers, I'm going to get a negative 3x, and I'm also going to get a negative 2x, because when I multiply the outside x times negative 3, I'm going to get the negative x, and then when I multiply the inside ones, I get negative 1 times 2, which is negative 3. And that, when I combine them, leaves me with negative 5x. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for negative 7x. So again, let's do the outside, and let's multiply the inside. The outside would be negative 1x, and the inside would be negative 6x. And when I combine those, I do get negative 7x. And that's what I'm looking for. So that's telling me that this will be the factorization for my beginning polynomial. So my final answer would be x minus 3 times 2x minus 1. All right? It's very important to take your time with this, to try to do it in a table, because things will get more complicated, like you'll see in our next example. So again, I want you to factor this new polynomial, 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. So I want to look for the different factors to get me negative 5. And then I'm also going to try to find the factors of the leading coefficient. This time it is 3. So of 3. All right? So I'm just going to list the factors of 3, and it's 1 and 3, and that's all that it's going to be. And because it's a positive, I'm only going to write down positive numbers. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. All right. Now for the factors of -5, I need to figure out what kind of numbers I'm going to choose. And so I'm looking here back at my chart again, all right, and because it's a plus sign, a positive for the 14, I'm going to look for a plus here, and a negative for the C. So where do I have a plus and a negative? Oh, the third line. So that's telling me that the P and the Q will have different signs. So when I write down all of my factors of -5, they should have different signs. So let's start with 1 and -5. Or I could have -1 and +5. But remember, the order matters as well. So why don't we look at 5 and -1, and also -5 and +1, right? Because order matters. Because now I'm going to try to factor this out as some different possibilities. So this will tell me the coefficient for the n. So I can have an n plus 1, and then I'm going back. The next one is going to be a 3n minus 5. So there's my first possibility. Second one, let's take our time. This will be n minus 1, and the second one will be 3n plus 5. All right, let's go to the third line. I'm going to have n plus 5 as a possibility, and also 3n minus 1 this time. And now on to the fourth one. I can have n minus 5, and in the second part, 3n plus 1. It is very important, these positive and negative numbers, that you take your time. All right? So again, we're going to try to find the middle term when we multiply. We're going to do that by multiplying the outside and the inside to figure out what that middle term would be. And we want them, when we add them together, to equal 14n. So here we go. N times -5 is -5n. The inside, 1 times 3n, is plus 3n. -5n plus 3n is -2n. All right? Now let's try the second one, because that is not what we want. We want positive 14n. So here we go. N times 5 is positive 5n. -1 times 3n is -3n. 5n minus 3n is 2n. Again, that's not what I'm looking for. Let's try the third one. N times -1 is -n. 5 times 3n is plus 15n. And that does equal 14n. So it looks like I found it. Let's just check our final one. N times 1 is positive n. -5 times 3n is -15n. N minus 15n is -14n. I'm not looking for that. So it looks like I have found my factorization. It is going to be n plus 5 times 3n minus 1. And if you do your FOIL, you're going to see that in the end it's going to come back to what you started with, 3n squared plus 14n minus 5. Right? Now, things will get even more complicated, but it is going to be extremely doable for all of you. Because sometimes you might have your polynomial beginning with a negative number. What do? All right? So whenever you have a negative number, factor out -1 at the very beginning. Okay? So now this is going to be rewritten as, if I take out the -1, I'm going to take it out. This is going to become a positive 4x squared. If I take a -1 out of 12x, it's going to be negative 12x now. And if I take a -1 out of 7, it's going to be -7. This now is what I want to factor. So I'm going to look for my C factors of -7. And now my a, again, is going to be a positive number, which is what I want. So I'm going to try to find factors of +4 as well. So let's look at the different possibilities for 4. I can have 1 and 4. Okay, and I'm going to list this 4 different times. Okay, the factors of -7, well, let's go back to our chart again. Okay, and in our chart, we're going to be looking for a -b and a -c. So negative and negative, oh, that's the second line. That means that the p and the q will have different signs. So we're going to write the different variations. I can have +1 times -7. That'll give me -7. Or I can have -1 times +7. Okay, but order matters, so I'm going to put the 7 first. 7 times -1 will give me -7, but also -7 times +1. All right. So some of these possible factorizations, let's see. I can have x plus 1 times 4x minus 7. That's one possibility. Second one, x minus 1 times 4x plus +7. That's another one. Let's go to the third line. I can have x plus 7 times 4x minus 1. And the fourth possibility is x minus 7 times 4x plus 1. I'm really taking my time, and I want you guys to as well. So let's see. If I multiply the outside terms, I would have -7x, and the inside terms would be plus 4x. That's going to give me -3x. I'm looking for -12x, so that's not going to work. Let's try the next one. X times +7 is +7x. -1 times 4x is -4x. 7x minus 4x is +3x. Let's go to the third one. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not finding it so far. X times -1 is -x. And 7 times 4x is +28x. Well, that's going to give me 27x, and I'm not looking for that. How about this one? X and -7 times 4x will be -28x. And that's going to give me -27x. So it appears for a second that I don't have any solution at all. None of them are working. But you know what? There are more factors of 4. So I kind of held off onto that. I can also do 2 and 2. And I'm only going to write it twice. Because it's the same number, there's only going to be 2 different possibilities. So again, I can have +1 and -7. Or I can have -1 and +7. All right, so here we go. Let's try these out. 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 7. So do you see why I only have 2 different ones? Because in both cases, they will have a 2x. And let's try our last line. 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 7. Okay, if I multiply my outside numbers, I'm going to get -14x, and the inside would be plus 2x. -14x plus 2x is -12x. And that's what I was looking for. Just to show you, the bottom one would be 14x minus 2x, which would be +12x. I'm not looking for that. So I have found my factors right here. It would be 2x plus 1 times 2x minus 7. The thing you need to remember, though, is the negative sign from this beginning, because I factored it out. So it must go in front for your final answer. And that's what we're going to do today. So I will see you in class with any questions you might have.